Welcome to Finding Faith in Fandoms, where Christian artists explore the spiritual themes and biblical parallels of our favorite stories. I'm your host, Jacqueline Tatro, and today I'm happy to introduce a new guest, Brooke Dennis.
Hello!
Our mutual friend Amelia Smith, who's been on the podcast before, introduced us, and we realized that we had some common story interests. Brooke, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Orlando, Florida. I went to graduate school in Manhattan, Kansas to become a drama therapist, and now I live here in Massachusetts doing that job. Being a drama therapist basically means I use theater techniques like improv and role play to help people process their emotions, build social emotional skills, and I particularly use D&D as a therapeutic tool.
That's awesome. Brooke helped Amelia and another friend and I when we did a Hadestown photo shoot a few months ago, which was so fun.
Yeah.
Those pictures came out really cool. But today we are talking about a different piece of mythological media, the Disney movie and musical Hercules. Disney's Hercules came out in 1997. I think that makes it count as part of the Disney Renaissance.
Yes, the very later end of it.
Mm-hmm. Brooke, did you grow up watching it?
Kind of. I think I got introduced to it a little bit later in my life, but as I've gotten older, I actually just said this to a friend somewhat recently. I think I've had to admit that Hercules is my favorite Disney movie, like far and away. Like I know there are ones that are like Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, which have also been ones that I've called my favorites, but I think if I'm honest about my love and my heart of hearts, it's Hercules.
Cool. My early experience of it wasn't great. My family had a collection of video cassettes of Disney animated movies, so Hercules was one that I sort of grew up watching, but didn't understand a lot of it and found some parts too scary. I actually had nightmares about the Hydra, so I stayed away from it for a long time. I think I saw it again in middle school when we were learning about myths, but then I sort of rediscovered it in my 20s, and by that time, I had learned more about mythology and the hero's journey, and I realized, oh, this is actually pretty good and follows the structure of the hero's journey very well and has a lot of surprisingly Christian themes and biblical parallels, despite its source material being Greek pagan myths. So that was kind of refreshing to see, and I've been wanting to cover it for a long time now. I actually have written about it and had essays just waiting to be shared with the world the past couple of years. So I'm happy to finally release those alongside this episode. In recent years, the movie has been adapted to a stage play with the same composer, Alan Menken, and he added some new songs as well, which are also wonderful. The first production was through the Delacorte Theater in New York.
Public Works Theater, yes.
And that cast included Jelani Aladdin as Hercules. His other Broadway claim to fame was playing Kristoff in Frozen on stage. And Roger Bart, the original singing voice for Teenage Hercules, played the role of Hades, which is very interesting. There have been a couple other runs of the stage show in different places. In 2023, there was a production at Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey. This year, 2024, it was in Hamburg, Germany, and next year it's supposed to be in the West End in London. So it's exciting to see it be picked up as a stage show. I don't know when they'll release an official soundtrack or album for that, but I look forward to the day they do. Before we dive into our analysis of the movie, I want to talk about our approach to mythology as Christians. Brooke, do you want to talk a little about that?
So I was always raised in the traditions of every story, whether we know it or not, points back to Christ, which is kind of the idea behind this whole podcast in the first place, yeah? I remember being in church camp in middle school and somebody doing a breakout presentation on that very concept of how we can find the redemptive story across all movies. And once you start seeing those details, you start seeing them everywhere.
Yeah. I think I started to become aware of that when I was in college. I went to Gordon College and started reading more and realizing, oh yeah, you see these echoes in all different stories, both ancient and modern. There's a wonderful essay by C.S. Lewis called Myth Became Fact, where he explains how pagan religions were pointing to Christ even before he was born. I won't go too much into that just because that's like a whole topic in itself. But if you want more background on the foundation for our conversation here, you can look there. For a more recent take or interpretation of that, you can check out the Literary Life podcast. They have some wonderful episodes on why read pagan myths, why read fairy tales if you're a Christian, and it kind of redeems the stories themselves that may be dismissed as fictionalization or distraction from the gospel. Like, no, they actually point toward the gospel. Any story involving a character who is half human and half God, or the death and resurrection of a deity, or a journey to and from the land of the dead. Those are foreshadowings or echoes of Jesus and the gospel story. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful to see, and it also gives us sort of a starting point for conversation in a natural way. Like, oh yeah, this aligns with our faith and can help us better understand different aspects of it. Mm-hmm. We're going to mainly stick with talking about the Disney film version of Hercules, just because the original myths, for one thing, there are many versions. There wasn't like an official canon. Different authors would have different variations. The stories would change in the tellings over time. Mm-hmm. Just to keep things simple, we'll focus on the movie, which did change a lot. Mm-hmm. Deviate a lot from the source material.
And a lot of what's in the source material is also barely referenced and not outright there.
Yeah, like there are a lot of different allusions. If you're well versed in your Greek mythology, you can pick up on different jokes that they make or things like that. It has a lot of parallels to the Superman movies. And Superman himself is a Christ figure, and his story has many parallels to the Bible, like to Moses in the basket, escaping the destruction of his people. So yeah, part of it may also stem from that. You can also look at different myths and see similarities between Jesus and different demigods or different experiences of heroes or gods. Yeah, I'm still learning about the full extent of all of them, but we're on this podcast because we think it's cool.
Yes, because we love these things and we think they're awesome and we want to talk about them.
I guess I sort of see two main threads in Hercules and his journey. One is the journey of humanity and the individual human soul, and also the journey of Christ in the incarnation. And it ends up teaching the most powerful lesson about the true meaning of love. Mm-hmm.
Before we get started, because I know we're kind of going through the beginning, one fun fact. The person who does the long ago in the land of heroes is Charlton Heston, who played Moses in the Ten Commandments.
Oh my goodness. Wait, that old movie?
The old movie.
Oh my goodness.
That's Charlton Heston.
Okay, that just made this 10 times more awesome.
And it's so funny because for a Greek mythology movie, and I was talking about this with people earlier, the fact that they use gospel music as a choice, even unintentionally, there's a lot of Christian iconography and ideas.
That was another thing that didn't register for me as a kid. What a strange and interesting choice that was stylistically. I didn't grow up listening to gospel music. The style and genre of music is pretty cool, and the first song is called The Gospel Truth. And gospel, of course, means good news. And the prologue of Hercules, the movie, is sort of like the opening chapters of the Bible in Genesis, where you have a world in chaos and then a God who is a fatherly figure bringing order out of that chaos. So we see the Muses, led by Calliope, who is voiced by Lillis White, who then just recently had a run at playing Hermes on Broadway, which is awesome.
Coming back to play Hermes again in Hadestown, so we love Lillis White.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like she went from playing Muse to playing Hermes, the messenger and narrator, and it's just an amazing singer in both roles. So we see the Muses, the goddesses of the arts and proclaimers of heroes, telling the story of Hercules, and they start with this prologue about Zeus and his victory over the Titans. I think in mythology that's called the Titanomachy. Mm-hmm. And after that, he establishes a family. He and his wife Hera have a baby boy, Hercules, and all the other gods celebrate with them. And so it's sort of like the Garden of Eden, like God establishing this family of Adam and Eve and their happy home and happiness in relationship. But then a jealous enemy enters the picture. In the movie, it's Hades, the lord of the underworld. And this isn't true to how he's depicted in traditional mythology, but they basically make him the analog of Satan,
Mm-hmm.
which makes sense on some level. He's like this personification of death. This version of Hades is like a car salesman, fast talking, and basically tricks people into making deals that will go poorly for them. Like Satan or like the serpent in Eden, he targets the fatherly god's heir. Hades plots against Hercules out of fear that Hercules will ruin his plans for taking control over Olympus and the earth. So Hades comes up with a plot to turn baby Hercules from an immortal god to a mortal human being and then kill him. So his minions, aptly named Pain and Panic, kidnap baby Hercules. They feed him a potion that turns him mortal, but he doesn't drink the last drop. So because of that, he still retains one godlike quality, his strength. So even though Hercules is mortal now, he still retains something of his divine nature. And I think that's a lot like the fall of man, how we have fallen from our original state of grace and the fullness of humanity, and we've been separated from God, our divine heritage. But even original sin can't fully eliminate the image of God in us.
Right. And I think it's really interesting because, you know, there's that whole sequence where Hercules, like, destroys the snakes.
Yes.
And
that's awesome. I was like, oh my gosh, he's crushing the serpent.
He's crushing the snakes. And then Pain and Panic are watching this happen from a ledge far away. Pain is freaking out and saying, oh my gosh, what is Hades going to do when he finds out? And Panic says, if he finds out. And how much of our sinful nature causes us to hide things out of pain and panic.
Ooh, that's good.
And granted, Hades and therefore sin and death and Satan is a very angry and hateful master. So no wonder Pain and Panic are going to hide these things from him, hide failure from him.
Yeah.
Because he's going to enact retribution on them for failing. So they hide it for 18 years.
And in the meantime, Hercules is found by a mortal couple, Amphitryon and Alcmene.
Mm-hmm.
So Hercules is raised in a normal human family, much like Jesus being raised by Mary and Joseph in Nazareth, and it's a pretty rural agricultural society. But he can tell that he doesn't quite fit in. Hercules still has his strength, and that causes problems for him because he can't control it. He wants to help his dad with the farm and wants to help people in the agora, but he messes up. We see a day where he is flat out rejected by everyone in his hometown. So he's loved by his parents, but he's rejected by his neighbors, his hometown. And we see that happen to Jesus in all four Gospels. They all have some version of this happening to him. And Hercules can sense that he's not where he belongs. He feels like he has a purpose beyond where he is, or that he comes from someplace else. That corresponds, I think, both with Jesus and with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hercules has that whole conversation with Amphitryon when they're overlooking the ocean. It's the sequence that leads into Go the Distance, where he's talking about he just doesn't feel like he belongs here. And he sings about, you know, I have often dreamed of a far-off place where a great warm welcome will be waiting for me, where the crowds will cheer when they see my face, and a voice keeps saying, this is where I'm meant to be. So you see, like, the shades of Hercules' future fame. Like, he wants that, but what he really longs for is that belonging of, like, finding a place where he belongs. I mean, that last line of the first verse, I would go most anywhere to find where I belong. And one of the things I wrote when I was taking notes on this was, how much do we do or choose in order to find belonging, for good or for ill? How much are we willing to pursue or chase belonging? When really, belonging is something that as Christians we inherently already have. We don't have to earn belonging. Gregory Coles, in his book, No Longer Strangers, Finding Belonging in a World of Alienation, talks about this, how True belonging is not earned, it's freely given, and so you can settle in it. And Herc has never had a chance to settle in true belonging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another thing I wrote down, because he talks about finding another world, especially after the conversation with his parents where he realizes, oh, I have to go to the temple and find out who I really am. I thought of a quote from C.S. Lewis where he says, if I find in myself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that I was made for another world. Hercules is a god. He belongs to another world, just as we do. We have these deep-seated longings for love and belonging and acceptance. And we will never fully experience it this side of heaven. So that means that there's another side of it that we need to get to. And I feel like Go the Distance so beautifully encapsulates that. Yes. Of like the long journeys that we take to find the thing that is already ours by birthright.
Yeah. You hit the nail right on the head. Yes. Yeah, as Herc is growing up, he talks to his parents. They reveal to him the fact that, yes, they found him as a baby and he had this medallion with the symbol of the gods. And so he goes to the Temple of Zeus, hoping that maybe the gods will reveal to him his identity.
Something that's really interesting is, I learned this from a Lindsay Ellis video, Herc does not do what traditionally a Greek boy would have done.
Yes.
He kneels and he prays! He kneels and he prays! A traditional Greek boy would have, like, slaughtered a goat or something. Yeah. And instead, Herc kneels like a Christian, and I love it. And it shows how much our iconography does permeate into the culture.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the image of someone kneeling and praying would have resonated more for the 20th or 21st century audience rather than slaughtering an animal.
Which is in the Bible, but not what we associate with piety and with approaching
exactly,
gods.
Yeah. And I think it's also a cool parallel to the story of young Jesus in the temple and him saying that he has to be about his father's business or in his father's house. And Hercules doesn't know it when he goes there, but he is entering his father's house. And there, he does have a sort of divine encounter revelation. Because it's a cartoon, they make it so that the statue of Zeus comes to life and terrifies him, but then explains, I'm your father. And it reminds me of Jesus's baptism and later his transfiguration, where he receives affirmation of his identity as the Son of God and of the Father's love for him. And that actually comes up. Hercules asks, didn't you want me? And Zeus is like, of course we did. We love you. Mm-hmm. And Zeus explains to him what he will have to do in order to regain his immortality and be able to join them on Olympus. So it's like how Jesus receives his mission from God the Father, although obviously there are differences. Jesus, we believe, knew already his identity and his mission as he was growing. It wasn't like an all-at-once revelation the way it is for Hercules in the story. But it's a starting point of his journey of, I don't know if you'd call it ministry for Hercules. Maybe it's more like how Jesus had to grow in wisdom and stature before he started his public life. And Hercules now understands he has to learn and train to become a true hero in order to be reunited with his divine family and his heavenly home. But Zeus doesn't explain what a true hero is.
No. And that's kind of the point, and I think that's kind of the point of the Christian life. Yes, we have the Bible, which does guide us, but for the day-to-day details of our lives, God doesn't give us the answer. We have to walk the path and go through the training.
Yeah.
And go through the testing and go through the trials, and then we find out what these things are.
There are some things you can only learn through experience. Like, it's one thing to learn theoretical ethics and things like that, but it's another thing to be putting those into practice and to develop those virtues that we hope to have. The language of going the distance comes back again and again. Hercules talks about it, and then when he meets Philoctetes, or Phil, the trainer of heroes, he also talks about it. So they frame his journey very much in terms of running a race, and that's something we also see in the Bible, in Philippians and 2 Timothy. St. Paul uses the imagery of running a race to obtain a prize. For us as Christians, or more generally as human beings, our ultimate goal is union with God, and our ultimate destination, our finish line, is heaven. Next, we're introduced to Phil, who had hoped to train the greatest hero. And the way he talks about it almost sounds like how the Jewish people were waiting for the Messiah in Jesus' time. Instead, they had a whole line, a history of prophets and kings who were chosen by God, but then failed in different ways, or didn't live long enough to see the fulfillment of the prophecies of the Messiah.
And it's very interesting because when you go into Phil's home before One Last Hope, you see all the statues. So there's almost like an implication that it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Like how the Israelites had to wait, the Hebrew people had to wait 400 years before Jesus came. So there's that implication of time and how small things were failures. Like Phil's greatest hero that he thought he would be the proudest of was Achilles. And then they bring in the Achilles heel. And how that small flaw is the thing that ultimately failed him.
Yeah. And he calls Hercules his one last hope. And it's like, maybe that's how the people of Jesus' time may have seen him. You're our last hope for our people. You might actually be the one.
Mm-hmm.
I think the song One Last Hope has some foreshadowing in its lyrics. It's mostly a funny training montage.
Just watching Hercules just absolutely like a gangly teenager trying to learn how to be an awesome hero and just absolutely fail at it. But what Jackie's about to talk about is kind of the turning point in the song.
Yeah. It goes, to be a true hero, kid, is a dying art. Like painting a masterpiece, it's a work of heart. It takes more than sinew, comes down to what's in you. You have to continue to grow. So that's kind of the first hint we get, that being a true hero has something to do with your heart and not just your muscle or your athletic skill.
And that's the first time in this training montage that Hercules actually succeeds at something. Because this whole time he's been trying to rescue this damsel puppet that they have, trying to decapitate these monster figurines that he has. And when Phil says this to him, he has one more sword in his hand. He's been failing all this time, and he throws the sword, and that's when he hits the target.
So after all this training, well, first there's a detour where Hercules meets sort of the secondary protagonist of the movie, Meg, but we'll get to her in a few minutes. But to sort of test the waters, Hercules and Phil go to Thebes, which, of course, is a city featured in many Greek myths and plays, mostly for its tragedies. And yeah, it's a city. Well, in the movie they make it like New York.
Yeah, it's very clearly supposed to be New York City. Like, very obviously
the big olive. So yeah, it's the movie has a lot of, I don't know if you call it parody or satire, but it's very clearly like
there's
modeled after like the pop culture of the 90s. But it's full of refugees who escaped different disasters, and they're kind of hopeless. And Hercules comes in to present himself as someone who can be their protector, but they are totally dismissive. To be fair, the way he goes about it is just weird.
Yeah, they do. And yeah, he like tries to be like what he thinks will be the big dashing hero. You know, he like deepens his voice and he like swaggers up, and he's like, I'm going to be a hero. And they're like, yeah, what have you done?
Yeah, no. It's sad and funny, but it actually reminds me of a lyric from the song In Christ Alone, because Hercules, like Jesus, is scorned by the ones he came to save. He does get the chance, well, sort of, it's actually a setup, but he proves himself to the people and gains their acceptance by defeating the Hydra.
It is interesting, though, because in that moment, like we said, we'll get to Meg in a minute, but Meg comes up and she's like, you know, there were boys trapped in a rock slide, a terrible rock slide, and Hercules is so excited that this terrible disaster has befallen these children. And to the point where Meg even lampshades it, where she's like, wow, you're really choked up about this, aren't you?
Yeah.
She like shakes her and he's like, this is great. And she's like, excuse me?
Yeah, that speaks a lot to Hercules' motivation at that point. And we'll get into that more. But so Hercules quickly rises to celebrity status. It's basically a montage, zero to hero. It's one of the Muses' big numbers. He does most of the things I did. Traditionally, he had 10 labors I had to accomplish, and those were mostly like defeating particular monsters or overcoming different obstacles. And yeah, he earns wealth, he gains status, and sort of like Jesus, he is hailed as a savior. And there's even a particular shot in that song where Hercules, his steed is Pegasus, and he's riding through this adoring crowd, and it makes me think of Jesus' triumphal procession on Palm Sunday, entering the city of Jerusalem, and people welcome him as the Messiah at that point.
Yeah, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest.
Yeah. It's interesting how Jesus and Hercules both experience the extremes of rejection on the one hand and celebrity and intense fame on the other. But being a hero or savior turns out to mean something different than most of the people think.
Mm-hmm.
So Hercules thinks that he has done it all, thinks that he has proven himself a hero because everyone sees him as that. But Zeus tells him, you're still not a true hero yet. It's something you have to learn for yourself.
But I have an action figure. And he pulls out his little action figure. And Zeus is like, that's great. That's not what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And it shows the very human side of Hercules, that he thinks adoration and adulation is the thing that makes him a hero.
Yeah.
Which obviously the climax of the movie, which we will get to, proves to not be the point.
Yeah. Hercules at that point perfectly illustrates the passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 where St. Paul talks about, if I have all these talents and abilities, but do not have love, I am nothing. And Hercules, he's doing good things, he's doing good works, presumably saving people's lives and making their lives better, but he is not doing it out of love or selflessness. I mean, he's doing it as a means to an end. It's a good end. Mm-hmm. It's good that he wants to be with his family and reach Olympus, but it's still a selfish intention rather than for the good of other people.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, also, Hades is getting ready to enact his plan. He's on a deadline because he wants to strike when the planets are aligned. And he keeps trying to thwart Hercules with all these monsters, but Hercules just beats them all.
Yeah. I love the sequence where Hercules meets Meg, and he immediately develops this huge crush on her. And while Hades is throwing the 10 labors at him, Meg is watching on in approval and watching Hercules knock down every obstacle in his way. And this is when Hades gets the idea. It's so funny, I'm looking at Jackie's notes, and I see that she also has Samson and Delilah references in there, because I had the same thought writing this down.
Yeah, that was only a recent realization of mine. Like, I watched the movie a week ago. I was like, oh, wait, there's another story that this parallels to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Meg is such an interesting character, and it's not surprising to me that she is such a beloved character. I see her as being sort of similar to Gomer, at least in the way we portrayed her in the Prophet Project, and I think she represents humanity in many ways. So Meg sold her soul to Hades in order to save her boyfriend from death. But then her boyfriend cheated on her and ran off with another girl. As a result, Meg is left being Hades' slave. So it's basically like being enslaved to sin and death, as humanity is. And she gives up on the idea of love because love brought her pain, betrayal, and she's basically given up on people. She says to Hercules, everyone is petty and dishonest. And she clearly includes herself because she's looking at her reflection in the water.
Yeah.
And she talks about how sometimes it's better to be alone because then nobody can hurt you. So she doesn't want to be vulnerable again. But Jesus and Hercules make themselves vulnerable in order to save their beloved. And love means opening yourself to being hurt.
Well, and what is the most iconic song in this movie? I won't say I'm in love, in which Meg is processing, the muses are like trying to encourage her to admit that she is in love with Hercules, or she is falling for him. And then immediately Hades sees this and is like, oh, we're going to take what you already think you know about love, and we're going to twist it on this very innocent person. Because love is strength, but it is also weakness.
Yeah. And it's paradoxical, and Hades basically tries to weaponize it. Hercules and Meg have an interesting dynamic. At first, she is dismissive of him because he is so innocent, and she is so much more worldly and experienced. He's infatuated with her from the beginning because she's probably the first girl he's gotten to know well. I think she then ends up falling for him because he is so genuinely good. That's not what she has come to expect from men or from people in general. And at that point, Meg is already willing to sacrifice for Hercules because Hades was giving her the chance to be freed from their deal. If she did this one thing, if she found out Hercules' weakness, then he would give her her freedom. But Meg, after her time with Hercules, says, no, I'm not going to help you hurt him, even though that means she'll still be enslaved. That takes us into, I think, the third act. Hades deliberately isolates Hercules from each of his friends and allies. Mm-hmm. Hercules and Phil have a fight about Meg because Phil learned that she was working for Hades and plotting against Hercules. Phil leaves. Pegasus is lured away. So Hercules is alone when Hades approaches him and presents him with a deal. He shows Meg held hostage and asks Hercules to give up his strength for one day, which would be the day of his attack on Olympus. Hercules is torn, but ultimately decides to give it up temporarily. But he makes it with the condition that Hades has to promise that Meg won't be harmed. Hercules is sapped of his strength. So physically, he's at his weakest. And then Hades kind of does the final blow emotionally by revealing that Meg was working for him and everything that was a setup before, undermining Hercules' whole faith in Meg and making him think, oh, none of it was real.
And even in the moment after that happens, Pain and Panic, who have been shown to be the weakest characters in the film, shove him over and are like dumping the Herculate on him and are like chanting like, our heroes is a hero, like mocking him.
Yeah.
As Meg watches on and is crying.
Yeah, so Hercules, like Jesus, is betrayed by the loved one that he was trying to save. And he reaches his lowest emotional point. But then, even after that, he turns himself over when Hades sends the Cyclops to Thebes to finish Hercules off. And Hercules gives himself up to save the city and is publicly beaten and humiliated, like Jesus, on the way to the cross. The woman betraying the man and him losing his strength is very much like Samson and Delilah in the Book of Judges.
But the interesting thing is Meg then because Phil says, like, I'm on the next barge out of here after the fight with Hercules. And so Meg goes and finds him and brings him back. And, you know, they witness the Cyclops beating the tar out of Hercules. And Meg is trying to persuade him to not fight. He's like, there are worse things than dying, essentially.
Yeah.
I forget what the line exactly is, but he's basically like, there are worse things that could happen to me at this point. Or worse things have already happened.
Yeah, like he's already been betrayed or abandoned by the people he cares most about.
And unfortunately what happens is Herc uses cleverness to defeat the Cyclops instead of his strength by binding his feet, and he falls over this cliff. But in the process, he knocks over a pillar that's about to crush Hercules, and Meg shoves him out of the way and is crushed instead. And that obviously breaks the deal and gives Hercules his strength back, but it also means that Meg is dying.
Yeah. It's so tragic and so beautiful. The sacrifices that Hercules and Meg make for each other. And he asks her why she would do that. I think at that point he still doesn't understand what her true motives are, although he is horrified when he sees what's happened to her. He still cares about her on some level. She answers him, people do crazy things when they're in love. Meg has learned and now is teaching Hercules. I think John 15:13 is, no one has greater love than this, to give one's life for one's friends. And yeah, love does lead you to do things. It doesn't mean that, like, if you're in an abusive relationship, you should stay in it or anything like that. But agape love, sacrificial love, true love leads you to do things that don't seem entirely rational or in your own self-interest.
Right, like the parallel to Jesus, and part of the reason why I was so enthralled by this line, knowing we were recording this episode, was the idea of Jesus dying on a cross. Like, he's the Messiah, he's meant to be a king, to rule, and instead he dies an unjust criminal's death. And that's how he wins. And that is a crazy thing to watch happen.
Yeah, and like the fact that Jesus loves us collectively and individually enough to die for us and to endure such horrific torture leading up to his death is mind-blowing. He reconciles with Meg, but she's dying. But he has to still fight this cosmic battle in the heavens between good and evil. There's the chaos on Earth, but then also in the spiritual realms, spiritual powers at work.
And they make really short work of that. That sequence is actually so quick in the movie.
It is. It's almost too easy.
And so after they re-secure Olympus and everything comes back together, Hercules then realizes that Meg is almost out of time. And he doesn't get to her before she dies.
Yeah.
And he cries and he sobs and he realizes that there is a way to get her back. And this is what leads him to go to the underworld and confront Hades.
Yeah. It's interesting how the final act of this movie goes very quickly. There's almost not enough time to process everything that's happening.
This last act of the movie is so fast.
And for such intense emotional beats. And then, he decides to go to the underworld. Usually in stories, both myths and more recent contemporary stories, the journey itself is a big part of the story. But they really just gloss over that.
Mark just shows up in the underworld.
My headcanon, personally, is that he got help from Hermes. Because that was one of Hermes' jobs. He was a psychopomp, so he would lead the souls of the dead to the underworld. And he was the god of travel, so maybe Hercules asked him for directions, and Hermes showed him the entrance, or something like that. So in mythology, the journey to the underworld is called katabasis. And in the Christian salvation story, a term for that is the harrowing of hell. When Jesus died, and we say in the creed, he descended into hell, and he freed the souls that, at least this is my understanding as a Catholic, he freed the righteous people who died before his coming, enabled them to finally go to heaven and be in that union with God.
Yeah, and so Hercules gets to the underworld and he makes a deal with Hades. They see her soul floating in
the river Styx.
Styx. And he makes the deal with Hades. If I can get her out, you will let her go.
And Hercules will stay in her place.
Yes, and Hercules will stay in her place. And Hades is like, fine. And so it's very interesting to watch this sequence because as Herc is swimming through the river Styx, he's visibly aging and getting older and older and older. And it's intercut with the three fates about to cut his string until he's able to grab Meg. Right as they go to cut his string, it turns gold. Showing that he has done the selfless thing and has regained his immortality. And his string can no longer be cut. And it's so good! And it's what Jesus did for us. He went into hell to grab us out of the depths and bring us back with him.
And then, for good measure, as he carries Meg, her spirit, out, he also punches Hades and sends him into the river Styx, and the souls drag him under. So it's basically like the death of death. Like, death is defeated.
Well, and there's this great line just before that happens where Hades sees Herc glowing in his glory, holding Meg's soul, and he says, "You can't be alive. You'd have to be and Pain and Panic chime in, "A god?" And that's like the big moment of like, oh, he's finally achieved immortality.
Yeah, like that is the resurrection day. That is the glorification after the death. And it's so amazing, it's so beautiful. So Hercules restores Meg, restores her spirit to her body, so she's back. They basically have the same exchange, but in reverse. She's like, why would you do that? And he's like, people do crazy things when they're in love. And then they're lifted up to the gates of Olympus, and Hercules is hailed as a hero now by the gods themselves. He's reunited with his parents, and they explain, you are a true hero now.
For a true hero is not measured by the size of his strength, but the strength of his heart. Which also says a lot about our growth as Christians, because, you know, we can do all the good deeds in the world, but if we do not have love, they mean nothing. That whole part in 1 Corinthians 13 about the voice being clanging cymbals and it meaning nothing without love. And I also really love Hercules' speech when he's explaining that he wants to be with Meg. Because he sees Meg turning around and walking away from him when she realizes that he's achieved godhood.
And she doesn't ask him to leave that behind for her. She realizes, oh no, this is what he's always wanted. This is what will make him happy. And she just expects to be left behind because that's what she's used to.
Congratulations, Wonder Boy. You'll make one heck of a god.
Yeah.
And then he turns around and sees her walking away. And he thanks Zeus and Hera. But then he goes to Meg and he says, but a life without Meg, even an immortal life would be empty. And that's really what the harrowing of hell is Jesus deciding that immortality without us is empty.
Yeah, like God, I think there's a song that says, you didn't want heaven
without us. Yes.
It's amazing. So there are some distinctions to be made here. Like, Jesus didn't have to choose between his divinity and humanity. He has both. And because Jesus joined our humanity in the incarnation, he enables us then to participate in his divinity.
And that's the beauty of... Because what happens at the end of the movie is that Herc becomes mortal again and then stays with Meg. Jesus gets to make us immortal with him, and we get to be in heaven with him. And that is the beauty of the story that the film does not have.
Yeah, the film still ends with a division between the heavenly realm and earth. We look forward to a day when everything will be in unity. We'll be able to enter heaven and the communion of saints. In a sense, that communion already exists, but there will be no more divide between us. In the stage musical, they added a song to this part of the story called To Be Human. You can find Jelani Aladdin's rendition of it on YouTube. It's Hercules when he's at the gates of Olympus and has this decision to make. Will he join the gods on Olympus or stay with Meg on Earth? It's really a reflection on the human experience, including the reality of suffering and the mystery of finding beauty in that. The lyrics are great, and Hercules realizes that human beings' struggles are part of the journey to glory. He poses the question, if you cannot lose, then how can you win? It's a beautiful affirmation. Even though this life is full of challenges, it is still good. It's still good to be human. It's still good to be alive. And he comes to the conclusion that to be human is divine, particularly when he's with his friends and he's with Meg, his beloved. It's so beautiful. We believe in the Trinity, God who is, by definition, a relationship. God is love, and that is also our destination. That is what we're trying to go the distance to.
I know another version of Go the Distance talks about when I go the distance, it'll be waiting in your arms.
Yes. I love that. I think that's, the version that plays in the end credits of the movie. That version basically covers Hercules' whole journey, not just the beginning part. And the idea that our destination is a relationship, not just a place. And that sense of belonging isn't just a place, but it is people. It is relationship with God and with each other. It's so beautiful. And then, of course, the movie ends with
A Star is Born.
A Star is Born, which I guess goes with the stars changing to form the constellation of Hercules.
Which, Phil's whole dream of people seeing him in the stars and people being like, that's Phil's boy. I watched it last night and cried. I was like, this is very emotional.
Yeah, it's really cool. Hercules, Meg, and Phil all have their own arcs, and they overlap. It's really beautiful how it all ties up in the end. And Hercules still has a relationship with his adoptive parents as well. We see them. At the height of his fame, he bought them a house, made sure they were living in comfort, and then he is reunited with them at the end as well. And the song A Star is Born has some really great lyrics. It starts with, gonna shout it from the mountaintops. That sounds like a Christmas song. Like, go tell it on the mountain. The words of prophets, proclaim it from the mountaintops. This is the good news. There is a savior. And then in the second verse, there are these lyrics. Just remember in the darkest hour, within your heart's the power for making you a hero too. So don't lose hope when you're forlorn. Just keep your eyes upon the skies. Every night a star is born. So at the end, there's a message for us, too, that we have the potential to be a hero, too. Our hearts also have the power, the capacity for love. There's so many good things in this movie. I only wish it had maybe been a few minutes longer so that they could give some breathing space to the different emotional beats.
Another 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Act 3 goes so quickly.
Yeah.
That was the thing that struck me a lot watching it. I was like, this is a lot that happens in these last 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's a lot to process. I know at one point, a few years after the movie came out, there was also an animated series.
Yes, not that long after. It was like still late 90s.
Yeah. I've only watched a few episodes. It's not that great compared to the movie.
but a lot of them aren't, and it also ruins a lot of the canon. Like,
yes.
Hercules knows that, like, Hades exists. They eventually do, like, in the last episode, like, a memory wiping thing for everybody, and that's how they make it canon compliant. But it's basically, like, Herc going to high school and learning how to be a hero.
Yeah.
And he makes friends with Icarus and Cassandra, who are also prominent characters in Greek mythology.
Yeah, he does meet Meg at one point, but then they forget about each other through magical means. And then there is one episode that takes place after the movie.
When they're, like, reflecting on the show. It's like a clip show.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was definitely fun and refreshing to return to this story as an adult and realize, oh yeah, there's a lot of beauty in this because it reflects the beauty of the gospel story so well. Mm-hmm. That pretty much covers all of my notes and ideas. Did you have anything else?
No, and it covers mine too, so... It was very exciting to, like, look at your notes and see that you and I have very similar ideas.
Great minds think alike.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be part of this conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me. This was so exciting, and I hope I get to come back someday.
Yes, please do. All right. Well, that wraps up our conversation for today. I will include the links to my essays in the show notes. You can find more content like this on findingfaithinfandoms.org. You can follow us on social media, and you can look us up on Patreon if you'd like to support this project. We really appreciate your support. Take care, and God bless.